As the Arunaha refers to the dawn, the charioteer of sun god dispels the darkness much before the luster or the brilliance of the sun, which is symbolized as realization. Just as the dawn dispels the darkness, the wisdom attained through the spiritual sadhana destroys avidya, destroys ignorance. Aruneneva bodhena purvam beforehand, prior, santamase hrite. The dense darkness is destroyed by light, by dawn, just as ignorance is dispelled by darkness. Now, we said that the ignorance that we experience manifests in various forms. One of the most powerful manifestations of ignorance is attachment. So, the various attachments that we experience So we are all seemingly get liberated from the clutches of attachments. You will experience it. You will be there to experience that. In fact, you actually see the spirit of detachment creeping into your life, and the attachment which holds you on starts losing its grip, losing its effect on you. And when you are detached, detachment becomes the very secret or the source of enjoyment in life. Only when you're detached, you can enjoy life. The moment you're attached, you lose the very charm of life. How is it that you need to be detached to enjoy life? To enjoy anything for that matter? You need to have that spirit of detachment. So I just thought, just mention this pertinent point, because he says the wisdom erases the ignorance, and ignorance manifests in the form of attachment. So we should know how detachment helps us. So firstly, when one practices detachment, detachment creates an identity of yourself. Detachment from the world of things and beings creates an identity for yourself as to who you are. Who am I? What am I? Detachment from the objects and beings of the world creates an identity for myself. Because all the time I'm defining myself by external things, isn't it? Either the education I have gained through the course of my study, whether you could be a graduate You could be a postgraduate, you could be a doctorate. You will define yourself by the degrees you've attained, how scholarly you are. You start defining by your social status, by your material status, by a country, by the region, by the language, by the culture, by your profession. Now there's a new way of defining yourself. You're defining yourself whether you're vaccinated or not. I am vaccinated, I've got second dose also. Wow. It's a new identity that's come into your life. So detachment gives you a possibility of creating an identity for yourself without the objects and beings of your attachment. Just for once think, if I can separate myself from the objects and beings that I have identified and have attached, is there an identity left, or is there anything left? It's a very powerful thought. Separate myself from the objects and beings that I have attached to. And if I separate myself from that, is there an identity? Who am I? What am I? Remember this quote I keep saying, if I am what I have, if I am what I have and what I have is lost, then who am I? If I am what I have and what I have is lost, then who am I? Does that individual have any identity? Is there anything that can define him or her? And detachment is that it is you don't have to wait until all what you have is lost, and for then you have to sit and consider, oh, am I this? You don't have to wait until that happens. You can start exploring that possibility of what you are by detaching yourself from the things and beings of the world. Just detach yourself, you will be able to create an identity. So the first point is detachment creates an identity of who you are. Otherwise, you do not know who you are, because all the time you are defining yourself by the objects and beings of your attachment. My family, my home, my business, my country, my region, my children. It's all your objects of attachment is defining you. Now, what the second point is, wherever there is attachment equals. A familiar word of attachment is victimization. The moment you are attached to anything, you remember you are a victim. It's victimization. I don't know where it comes from. There has to be that source of wisdom. It's there and yet not there. This afternoon there was this conversation I had with Rajima, and there was some question she had asked, and something I said, I'm going to bed, ma, as usual. Afternoon I take a nap, and I said we'll connect again. So when I got up late in the afternoon, I was still resting, not got up to get on with the other activities. I put on and I started messaging her. And if I don't put on my specs, I can barely, I can't see as vividly, but I can see, I can make my sense what I'm typing. And then she had asked this question. The question was referring, not in a quote. Can you, she said, please clarify. And the quote was, detachment is the key to enjoyment, isn't it? And then she said, Guruji, does this mean this? And I'm just giving you a background of this. And then I started typing to her. I said, I'll connect to you when I wake up. And I started connecting with her. And one of the first things I typed, I was not my conscious self. I was barely able to see. And all I typed was attachment equals victimization. And I must confess, I don't think you all have ever heard this word. And I have never ever said that or described that way. And it makes so much sense. And I see it all. I wonder why I couldn't see it the way I see it now. Attachment equals victimization. Attachment equals constant persecution. You are constantly persecuted by the objects of your possession. Whenever you are attached to anything, remember, you are victimized by your objects of possession. You become a victim. So the objects of possession constantly persecute you. So you become the object of sorrow and suffering. You suffer. You become a victim. And why is that happening? Because of your own attachment. Firstly, I said attachment gives you an identity. If I am what I have and what I have is lost, then who am I? It must keep bothering you. Who am I? Who am I? Remember the other day I was talking about a movie and it just came as a flash of the movie I remember seeing many, many years ago. It's a classic movie, a movie called Random Harvest. Padmanima, fourth movie in the list. First is, what was the first? First is Terminator. Terminator first. Second is Crudes. Third was, what was the third movie? No, I'm adding to the list of movies you must watch. What was the third movie the other day I said? Enna Hariji? Any idea? Did I? Correct.
Les Miserables.
Correct. The Les Miserables. The Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. That's the third one. And the fourth movie to watch is Random Harvest. It's an outstanding movie. I don't know who directed it. I'm not sure, but it's maybe in the 60s or 70s. You know, that old movie. And the hero in that movie is called Smithy. She calls Smithy. It's an outstanding movie, and there's a key. I don't want to get into the movie. There's a key that is in his pocket, and he loses memory. And when he gains, there's a man who goes to war. He was a very wealthy businessman. When he goes to war, he has an accident. He loses memory. He gets in touch with a young, charming lady, gets into a relationship with her, marries her. He has a kid. He goes for a job to London, and he meets with an accident crossing the street, and he loses and he gains back that memory. And then he recovers from the hospital and he remembers who he was, and he goes back to his family 10-15 years later. The whole family thought this man was dead, and surprised, this man ends up at the door, and then he's actually heir to the property. His father passed away, and all his surprised, his extended family were gathered there in that house that day. So there were some celebration. So he was shocked. What is it that's happening? And he had to be told all that has happened. But then he is a well-known businessman in the city, and then he goes back to that life and becomes the king, as it were, of the entire empire. But there was this key in his pocket, the spare key to the house, with Smithy, with his wife and the kid. He lost memory of that. And Liverpool, this is what happened. The whole incident happens in Liverpool, and this key keeps bugging him. The thought, who am I? There is some identity. There's something I am which I do not know. What happened to the last 10-15 years of my life? And then he starts exploring back. And meanwhile, this lady sees her husband, who was in the papers, flashed because there was some issue happening in the Liverpool factory, and there was a furore between the management and the employee union, and his name is there in the papers all over the country. And she's shocked to see my husband. And then she applies for a secretary job. She becomes the secretary of that man, and she can't tell him that you are my husband. And yet the moment he sees her, have I known you? Do I know you? There are traces of that memory, but then slowly she traces him back to the Liverpool where she first met him, where he first had. It's outstanding, I tell you. How you retrace your steps back to find out your lost identity. Watch this movie, Random Harvest. You don't watch the other 3 movies, watch this movie. Who are you? The whole Shastras are trying to tell us who you are. You've lost your identity. So therefore, you got to constantly, remember the other day we said association of thoughts. You must constantly associate with things that keeps reminding you of your identity of yourself. Don't disassociate with yourself. Anything that helps you to get back to yourself, you're practicing yoga. So the first thing, detachment gives you that possibility of creating an identity for yourself. Second, attachment creates a victimization. Then you are subjected to whatever the objects of attachment are subjected to. Example, your car, somebody dents your car, somebody vandalizes your car, you had it, you pay the price. Your business is going through fluctuations, it hurts you. Your child is going through a troubling time in her life, it hurts you. The stock market is not in your favor, it hurts you. Everything hurts you, whatever you're attached to. Business is not doing well, it hurts you. Why? Attachment. Somebody challenges your ego, it hurts you. Everything hurts you because of your attachment. Now, thirdly, detachment is that which creates an attitude of a witness. By practicing detachment, you adopt this quality of being a witness. And when you become a witness, you start enjoying everything in life. But the moment you attached, remember, attachment equals victimization. The moment you practice detachment, you become a witness, and you become an observer, and you start enjoying everything in life. Badrinath ji, how do you say that enjoyment is equal to detachment? The opposite is very clear. Attachment is suffering. How do you say detachment is enjoyment?
When you become an observer, as you just pointed out, you see better, you hear better, not in a physical sense. You're more, the inputs that you get from the world are not from the point of view of possessing that, but sheerly pure experience. Like, for instance, if I listen to music and I love that music, that is one level of involvement. The other level of involvement is I should go to a shop and buy the CD of that music. Then you want to possess that. So there is a loss of purity when you start getting attached to that. Whereas when you're simply listening to the music and enjoying, then you are more alert to the nuances of music. I think a sense of alertness sharpens when you become a pure observer.
So much so, you enjoy every aspect of life. Isn't it, Ji? Every aspect
other
of
dimension,
life.
Other dimension of that.
Other dimension of that. You're right.
You don't get involved in that, but you simply experience it.
You experience the beauty of it.
Getting involved in something, getting enmeshed in something. Yeah, right.
Correct. Now, just to drive home the depth of that point, Rajima, do you remember the example we said?
You took the example of the car, Guruji, which has had a scratch. And if the company was supposed to pay it, you remain detached and you remain unaffected.
Correct.
But and you have the second point you said was that you have the right contact then with the
No,
situation.
correct, correct. But I was actually coming to that next point. But what's the
Sorry.
example we gave? I said about you enjoy when you're detached. When you're attached, you go through suffering. We took the example of a car. Rightfully so. When you're detached, how do you enjoy? What example?
Yes, Guruji, the tragedy, the movie which is tragic, when you're an observer, you are not involved in the tragedy. So that was the example you gave. Sorry.
You say it was a beautiful tragedy.
Yes, it was a beautiful tragedy.
Don't you say it's a beautiful tragedy? And I ask you, what is so beautiful about a tragedy? You must sit and moan about it, but yet you say it's a beautiful tragedy. Oh, what a movie. It's a beautiful tragedy. Why? You stood apart and watched the tragedy happen on the screen. Can you stand apart and watch the drama that's going around you? It's a free entertainment if you are detached. What amount of entertainment? Oh my God, you will get everything to see for free, provided you're detached. Otherwise, you also will be dancing to the tunes. You also party to the happenings. But if you're detached, it's a fun, sheer fun. The same principle you practice in a movie, you will practice in real life. I tell you, it is sheer ecstasy. Reddy Garu, I'm telling you, it will be 24 hours free movies here. Live movie. Nobody can predict what's happening. It's a constant drama.
Pranam Guruji, I'm just recollecting that, like you were saying, the attachment is a victimization. Definitely, the detachment leads to victor.
Yes.
The real victor, like when we say the tragedy is literally blissful, like when we are deep sleep is called be blissful for us, a feeling of that. I think when detachment, I think we see around what's been happening, but you're nowhere getting connected to those. So that means you have a total control of all your senses in all respect of it. You watch and just observe as an observer, nothing beyond that.
Correct. To extend it, you start enjoying everything.
Of course.
It doesn't daunt you. It doesn't pin you down. It doesn't have a toll on you. It just, you see the charm of every emotion. You see a charm of every aspect of life.
That's right.
Yes, wonderful. Yes, Hariji.
It's like a sense of ownership. If I stay in a house, a rented house, for 2 years, I have some feeling towards it. But the same house, without any change, if I buy it after 2 years, then I become the owner of the house. Then I see the house in a totally different angle. Because now I am the owner, sense of ownership.
The problem starts.
Yeah.
Because
the same.
What happens? What happens the moment you become the owner?
Yeah, then everything I will think 10 times whether I can nail it, I can do this, I can do that. What will happen? I will go around and see how much is the value of the house. I will start evaluating. And just because the same house when it was rented, then I used to go out at 8 o'clock. I used to come by 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock from the office. Fine. But when I become the owner, when I go out, then I will look the house once again, whether it is okay, everything is fine. And when I come by 5 o'clock, again, I will have a look. I will go around, see everything is fine. And every month I will go and ask how much it costs, whether it is 1 crore, 2 crore, I don't know how much. And then you start evaluating, okay, I invested 1 crore. Now it has become 1.5 crore, 2 crore. The whole thing starts because now I am the owner of the.
Victimization, you have become a victim, sir.
Yeah.
Avladhan. But that doesn't mean you should not possess. That doesn't mean you shouldn't acquire. The beauty is to maintain that.
You have to lose it to gain it.
Yeah, and lose what? Lose your spirit of attachment. Then you truly enjoy it. Isn't it?
Yeah,
Right.
true.
The example is very, very apt. You start, the possessor becomes the possessed. In the Setuji, I remember he constantly keeps saying this. The possessor becomes the possessed. Correct? Huh? So what should we do, sir?
Yeah.
What should we do?
Lighter vein, I was just saying, one can even enjoy the nagging of a spouse if you are detached.
Sir, I don't want to get into it, sir. I am already paying enough karma consequences of what I say. I don't want to get into that subject matter anymore. I want to be detached to it now. No, in fact, you appreciate, you're right, in a lighter vein and in a serious note. In fact, I think it was Socrates. Socrates is a very often quoted joke. Socrates was one day teaching to his students about nature, and he was talking about lightning and rain, and he was talking about this subject matter to his students. And his wife was calling from home. She was calling, "Hey Socrates, vada." Socrates was very busy teaching his students. So Socrates was not mindful of his wife calling. How will his wife call? Vada only she'll call her. Vango she'll not call. No, vada she'll call. So she called him, and our friend was very busy in the teaching. She didn't heed to her call, and she waited a few minutes. This fellow didn't turn up. Apparently, she had a laundry. She just finished, and she had a bucket of dirty water. So she came with that bucket of water, and she emptied that bucket of water on his head in front of his students, because this fellow didn't turn up. Vadana, he didn't go there. And then Socrates, in his wit and humor, he said, "When it roars, it pours." Look at his sense of humor. All the while, everybody was hearing the roaring, and when it roars, it pours. So you are able to take everything in your stride if you have that spirit of detachment. So you all can narrate your wonderful experiences also. So maybe one day we'll have only experiences of case studies. We will do that. Enna Sedramanji? Philosophy we can study later on. Only case studies we'll take.
But I don't experience it, but I feel other.
Fair enough. So moving on, we said, what was the third point we said? We took the example of the moment you are detached, you start enjoying every moment. There's nothing you complain about, because you just take a stock, you take assessment of what life is, and you relate with it. So the fourth point is, when you are detached, you're able to take a right measurement. You are able to establish a right relationship with the objects and beings of the world. So when you're detached, you're able to, being an observer, you're able to take right assessment and have a right relationship. You're able to correct a situation because of detachment. And the best example is when a painter is in the process of painting on a canvas. Doesn't he take a step back to his creation and look at it from an objective stance and start correcting the areas as to, I think I need to give a little bend to the nose. I think I should give a little shade to the hair. I think I must give this. He's painting a portrait of a beautiful lady. So he needs to bring in beauty to that picture. So he has to take a step apart, or he's painting something scenic. Whatever it is, he wants to bring beauty to it. How would he be able to do justice to it? How would he be able to find an imperfection in it? Step apart and watch. He will be able to bring in correction. So that spirit of detachment. Point 4. And the more the mental distancing, the more the enjoyment. The same point which I made earlier. And lastly, when you are detached, in fact, the most important of all, when you are detached, what happens? Yeah, GB Garu. Chapan sir.
Namaskar, Namaskar ji.
Namaskar.
Guruji, Namaskar.
Yes, sir. Namaskar.
When you have attachment, the bondage is there. With this bondage, avidya, real, you don't understand really what is happening. But when it is detached, you are liberated. You know that what's the same spouse, same father, same sister, same object. You enjoy it because you are in liberation. You are in not in the liberation. It gives so much freedom. There's vidya comes. That means real true knowledge comes. Then you don't find anything, any problem with anyone, any object. So you understand everything like a Mickey Mouse. You are saying like a Mickey Mouse is a you just enjoy whatever is happening. It is like a drama. That knowledge which is ultimately the true freedom gives.
Correct. No, you rightly said that the moment you have detachment, you're liberated from whatever bondage you had experienced till then.
Right. Right.
So it liberates you. So it brings you a certain freedom. In fact, this is where I was asking perhaps the biggest benefit you and I would experience if you are detached. What is that we experience if you are detached?
It means that is what the truth. The truth is known. When it is the truth is known, the same object, same wife, same sister, same father, which we are sometimes you are like nagging. You think, but nagging itself, as you said, the water when is poured in front of student, the same they don't. He doesn't feel that this is. He take it as a joke, as a make it as a very joyful. It doesn't
Right.
take as a angry doesn't come. Never he don't get hatred or angry anything because the truth when someone is becoming angry, they do something, but they are not liberated. They are
Correct.
body conscious.
Correct.
Here is soul conscious. Changing body conscious to soul conscious. Everything is just is like a drama. Enjoying.
Right, sir. I know you're enjoying the birds chirping around you. We're also enjoying, sir.
So nice.
Right, sir. Thank you. Right. Vijay Raghavanji, above all what we discussed, what is the benefit, ultimate benefit of detachment?
Pranam Guruji. I feel our ability to have empathy or ease of relating to anybody and anything around you goes up. And since there is no threat, there is no insecurity, and you see some commonality with everybody else. So that starts reducing the agitation and brings more peace.
Indeed, indeed. But we have already mentioned that, haven't we? That you're able to relate with situation, you're able to, maybe you brought in a certain sense of harmony and peace, where you enjoy a relationship or any situation. But I'm saying if you take a leap from all of this, what would it actually prepares a launch pad, I would say. That's the right word, in fact. Above this, detachment prepares a launch pad for something. In fact, by saying that term, I've given you a cue to think. Yeah, Vijayji, any further thought? All right, okay. Jayama?
You become a Sakshi, Guruji, and you become objective when you are detached.
We did say that, didn't we? I think the first point itself, we said that, isn't it? You become, in second point, the third point I said, detachment creates an attitude of a witness. We said that. Become a sakshi or a witness to things around you. I'm saying up to above all this, what does it create? Fair enough. No. Vaidyanathanji?
I think when you are detached, we've covered all the points. The most important point for me was that it gives you freedom. From that, you can do all the right things, and it creates the right frame of mind and the environment and the mental makeup to progress in self-realization, in your pursuit of self-realization.
This above all is what Vaidyanathanji has said. It creates a mental availability to get attached to something higher. And we are still using the word attachment because detachment from the lower facilitates an avenue to get attached to the higher. Your mind is available. Now, if your mind is available, if your mind is not available for the higher, why is your mind not available for the higher? Is because it is preoccupied and consumed, and the worries and anxieties, as Hariji said, I bought a property and now the property is creating havoc. I invested some amount in buying a parcel of land, and I've heard that these thugs will move in and they start taking over the piece of land, and then you will have to prove it that it's your land. They will not leave that land. Then honestly, you having sleepless nights. I wish I did not invest that. I do not know. Everybody thinks wealth gives security, but here is a proof that wealth is a source of insecurity. Don't know where to invest it. Not having is one worry. Having it is another worry. So there is no security in it. So all the time the mind eats you up, consumes you, if you're attached. But if you're detached, it creates a launch pad so that your mind can take off with the wings of freedom. As Vaidyanathanji again reiterated the point which J.B.K. Rao said, it gives you the freedom from the bondage. There is no freedom when you're attached. When you develop that freedom, you have that wings to scale your mind to the higher, as high, as lofty as self-realization. Well, it's a very grand thought. Remember, self-realization is like climbing Mount Everest. So don't use it in light note. It is the very highest of all. In order to reach that attachment, you must be detached to everything. Nothing. There's nothing that should hold you up. And once you realize your true potential, all these attachments are like strings which tied up the Gulliver. Remember the Gulliver in the Gulliver's Travels? All the Lilliputians, they tied him up with every possible string and rope they had. They tied him up, they pegged him down. And they were convinced that they got a hold of this giant who came into their land. And that fellow was sleeping. And the moment he got up, he just yawned a little bit. He just yawned. But all the strings fell, all broke off. All these Lilliputians were thrown here and there. You will experience that kind of freedom where all these so-called bondages which were pinning you down will not confine you anymore, because you have elevated, you have realized the true grandness of who you are, what you are. All these attachments are no more going to bind you. Now those same attachments are pinning you down, are restricting you, are causing you a hell. But the moment you experience that giant, wake up the giant potential in you by realizing the higher self, all this will gone, no more. They cease to exist. It never bound you. You thought it bound you, but they never have bound you. That's what he's going to say in the next verse. Okay, so beautiful. Yes, Shivaji, I hope you have got your
Yeah, first thing is I'm getting connected through my mobile.
Congratulations. First
Is
time we
it
are hearing your voice without any
clear?
interruption. Appa.
Great. Yeah.
All the time you had the choice to attach to your phone, but you were detached to your phone. See the benefit of attaching?
I just switched over to the phone and switched off my laptop. Yeah. I just want to add one point to the detachment.
Please, sir.
The moment you get detached, you are in the present moment. You are not, there's nothing of the past and the future. That's why it adds value to it. Because you are there right now, this moment. Now, right now, this particular point. So you are fully into it. Absolute yoga, absolute bliss. Being in that present moment. Detachment makes you to realize that be in the present moment.
Correct. It makes your present more real to you than the unreal, which is the past worries or the future anxieties. Very valid point. Very true. Very true. Ramji qualified the launch pad. Sir, again, proprietary rights are with me. Huh? You may give it a qualification, but it is still with me, Ramji. I am making it a point so that I am heard. One time I say nobody hears me. So I am repeating myself until I start nagging. Appa, never mind, take it, you will tell.
Oh, Namaste, Guruji. In fact, I acknowledged your word. I said that you asked it is a launch pad for what? So I answered that it is a launch pad to become a yogi.
Correct, sir.
So I didn't steal it. I used it actually.
No, the
With
problem
due
is
acknowledgement.
no, very true, very true. So it's a launch pad to become a yogi. Very true. So if you are not a yogi, what are you, sir?
You are a bhogi.
And who is a bhogi?
Bhogi has so many attachments. Like, yeah, he is completely attached.
Someone who is bound, attached is called a bhogi. One who is indulging in the ephemeral, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you know, so all of this, as you all are consciously taking a note, that as he said that, you know, Ramji, what is the context we are saying? I hope you're following the thought flow. How the verse started, the class started today. In what context are we saying all this? Not because of my conversation with Rajima, because of the verse I'm saying.
I didn't pick it up, Guruji. I mean, the verse. Yeah.
See that the 43rd verse that we did, we took example of the verse says, as dawn dispels the dense darkness much before sunrise.
Okay.
Isn't it? So all the ignorance disappears much before realization dawns onto you. So ignorance, we said, manifests in the form of your attachments. And that's when we said how wisdom, when you awaken the wisdom in each individual through the process of the sadhana, you start enjoying the freedom. You start experiencing a certain bliss, and how you start taking a certain, you bring about a paradigm shift in your mental approach or relationship to things and beings around you. So you're no more a victimization, you're not persecuted. Life indeed becomes a source of joy and bliss. And then we further said it becomes a launch pad for the higher. Isn't it, Jay? All right? Perfect. Anything to add, Jay? Ramji, anything to say? Good, okay. Padriji?
The strongest attachment we have is the attachment to our own ego. So once you start detaching to the outside world, finally the ultimate detachment is to your own ego. And once you detach yourself from your own ego, then the question arises, you know you are somebody, but you are no longer that egotistical person that you were attached to earlier. So you have to latch on to something, otherwise who are you? Okay, if you are not that ego, then who are you? So that is then the quest that we are talking about. Who am I? You know, for that, the ultimate detachment. I mean, the launch pad. What we're talking about, the launch pad, which is the ultimate detachment. Before you start attaching to the higher, is to detach yourself from your own ego.
Yes. It expresses in various forms. The ego manifests in various forms, but yeah, to be free from that is not easier.
Right. But that's why I'm calling it the ultimate detachment. Before you start on the journey of attaching to the higher, you have to do that. Or parallel with it. Yeah.
But it doesn't happen. It all happens in stages, isn't it? It's not that one day all the inflated ego, it's like somebody puncturing a balloon and it diffuses. No. That the very ego starts losing its the potency. It starts dissolving. Yeah. It starts liquidating itself. It starts merging itself to the pervasive totality, and it happens in stages.
Right.
No? So even though you have highlighted it, but it happens right through from the progression is actually measured with how humble you are, isn't it? It's not necessary that you become egoistic and arrogant and throw your weight around, and suddenly one day you become very humble. It's not like that, isn't it? It's just in fact.
Right.
The verse in the Gita which says Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastani. They actually put Vidya and Vinaya as a quality of a Brahmana. Humility and wisdom are two sides of a coin. You cannot have wisdom and have arrogance. It is not Vidya then. Isn't it, Ji? Right. All right, so no more comments. We'll move on to verse 44. Okay, just a minute, Gayatri Ma. I think GBK Rao Garu wants to comment something. Yes, sir, please. You can just be a little brief.
Yeah. When you have the detachment, your mind is established in knowledge. The true knowledge, who you are, whom am I? That is the starting point to really to understand who am I. That is the seed which starts. And what I said last time also, of one who is devoid of attachment, who is liberated, whose mind is established in knowledge, who acts for the sake of sacrifice with a sadhana. He will become, the enjoyment is only, we have come here to remove all prarabdha karma or any karma, which ultimately, for liberation, which it gives you the strength, that whom am I? And it starts, that is sacrificing, that is ultimate for whom to attach. Ultimately, attachment towards the Supreme. That is the real attachment. This is worldly things it is creating all problems, which is you are away from that. So correct. Sacrifice ultimately that is the whole Bhagavad Gita. It comes into this only, of one who is devoid of attachment, who is liberated, whose mind is established in knowledge, who acts for the sake of sacrifice. That requires sadhana. Sadhana starts where the continuous vichara sagara madana. That real, who am I? Who am I?
Correct.
So
yes.
That's what. So nice.
Yes. Right.
Nice.
Sure. Thank you. Right.